Welcome back once again to For the Love of Gaming's third online extravaganza. We are raising money for the charity To Write Love on Her Arms, a charity that does loads of work helping people who are struggling with depression, addiction, self-injury, and suicide. So please keep your donations coming in throughout these 3 days, because this is only day one. There's still 2 more days. Did I say 2 more days? I think I meant 3 more days of marathon yet. Anyway, how about what's going on right now? And what we've got going on right now for you is TempestMask1000 running Azure Striker Gunvolt. Take it away!
Hello, friends and fellow gamers. It's wonderful to be back here at For the Love of Gaming, and this time to present to you all my most recent speed game investment. This is a 2014 game released by developers Inti Creates, which some of you might recognize for the Mega Man 0 and ZX games, as well as Mega Man 9, 10, and maybe certain other titles. Funny that, considering that the studio itself was originally formed of some former Capcom employees that simply wanted to go their own direction. And, well, flash forward to 2014, and we get their first published title, Azure Striker Gunvolt, which is essentially a spiritual successor to those games. And I gotta say, I quite like these games. So I'm very happy to also say that today's run, which will be on the New Game Good Ending category, is the first time I'm actually presenting this to an event. So let's hope it's got a good time. Now, Nick, I understand that you have probably not seen this game in action before, correct?
That would be correct.
Well then, I think you're going to be in for a good time. Alright, time will begin once I've selected yes here. Would you like to give me the countdown?
Certainly. Let's get started in 3, 2, 1, go!
Oops. Hang on. Hold on. That was a false start. I pressed the wrong button. Okay. Trying one more time. Hang on. Okay. Sorry. This is the PC version of the game. All right. One more time, Nick. Do it.
3, 2, 1, go!
There we go. All right. So, allow me to explain what just happened there. This is the PC version of the game. It was originally based on the 3DS version, the original version of the game, but yeah. B is the confirm button, which I am so not used to, but hey, it is what it is. Alright, so this is Gunvolt, and we are playing a game where it's not your typical Mega Man formula. The general gist is that our hero here, GV, is capable of damaging enemies with his gun, but it has the more primary purpose of tagging enemies, so that once that is done, he gets to use his electrical powers, the Azure Striker, to zap them down, and that's where the real damage comes into play. However, for the speedrun purposes, we like to both combine mashing the bullets, or the pins, as well as using the flash shield to the best of our effect. It's with this in mind that another benefit I'll be utilizing as part of the new game category is Prevasion. You might have seen me pass through some enemies, but I did not take any damage. That is the Prevasion ability in action, where as long as I have a certain gear that allows me to use Prevasion, instead it'll expend from my EP gauge. Conversely, though, the EP gauge is what fuels my lightning powers, so I gotta be a little bit careful. Otherwise, if it expends entirely, I cool down and I can't use any flash field until then, which can be a bit of an inconvenience. Now, another thing that Gunvolt has is special skills. Normally there are quite a bit of special skills in the game, but you mostly unlock them by leveling up, since this game does have an EXP system. The only stuff that I'll be getting during the run is a healing skill called the Galvanic Patch, but it will probably not come into play unless I decide to use it for safety later on in the run. Otherwise, if I were to do the speedrun mode category, which speedrun mode is a PC version exclusive for Gunvolt 1, then in that case, I would utilize it for a little trick, but that won't be necessary. Otherwise, this is the Mantis tank, and the little gimmick here is that you're supposed to take down the HP on the head so that the weak point pops up like so, and one cycle, well, there we go. Note that the thing that just dropped from it, by the way, is a little health pickup. Sometimes that can happen, which is kind of funny. But yeah, so this mission will clear once I break down this little gate called a Hexapile, but otherwise assume that at the end of every mission from here on out will be a boss. So far, we're looking pretty good, though. And, yeah, we're gonna skip a couple of cutscenes, but the general gist is that Gunvolt is part of a rebellion group called Quill, and we are fighting against the mega corporation, the Sumeragi Group, which, if you're familiar with the Ultra Corporation from something like Killer Instinct, it's kind of basically that. So, I'm just going to do a little conversation with Jewel, but I'm also going to skip it, but this will trigger a little bit of a manipulation as we go into our first of the Sumeragi 7 stage, Merrick. So, I'm about to do a little thing where this level is kind of long, but should everything work out, then I can skip a lot, like a major section, which will allow me to... Whoop! Hang on a second. Seem to be experiencing some technical controller difficulties. Gunvolt, I kind of don't... Just kidding, that was all intentional. So, what I just did there was I activated the Anthem mechanic. This is something that you can also only see in the new game categories, because in speedrun mode, this mechanic is completely removed, as well as Pervasion, for that matter. Anthem is a semi-RPG RNG mechanic that, if you die, Lumen there will potentially resurrect you, and Gunvolt in this state is pretty buffed up. Normally, the ability to do air hops and air dashes is only restricted to having certain synth and equipped gear, but by going into Anthem, the game just gives it to you fresh out of the bin. So now I'm actually going to, in this next section, because levels are usually divided into 3 parts, I'm actually going to be on the lookout for a collectible jewel, because in the good ending category, I need to collect a total of 7. Now this is one of the conditions needed to get that good ending, but the good ending in Gunvolt 1 also has a bit of a weird extra condition as well, which I will bring up in the end of the game. But every time you hear that little ding, then that means I've successfully collected the jewel. Now that little spiked portion that I just walked into, that's actually a little bit of level design that's exclusive to the PC 3DS version, but more modern releases of Gunvolt 1 have removed that. Because if you're familiar with Gunvolt on the Switch, PlayStation, or most recently the Xbox, well, in the case of the Switch and PlayStation version, there was the Gunvolt Striker Pack, and that actually changed up some parts of the levels. I'm not sure if this is the case for the Striker Pack on the 3DS, because that did technically exist, but just to keep in mind that there are actually a couple of level bit changes between one version and the next. Anyway, we're going to be facing our first boss, Merrick, and one of the nice things about Gunvolt bosses is the developers designers usually throw in some sort of a theme going with the characters. So, for instance, with Gunvolt 1, all the characters are based off of the 7 deadly sins, and Merrick here is based off of the sin of sloth, because as you can see right here, he's not actually fighting me, he's rather trying to use his powers, but the chair there he's sitting on is mostly doing the trick. Also, his little special move here, Lazy Laser. If that doesn't say it enough for you, then this guy is definitely lazy. I love him though, he's pretty funny. But other than that, we get to have a really fun time with him because of the Anthem and all that good jazz. So yeah, that's the first mission. 1 down, quite a few more to go. Alright, so now I'm going to talk about Extravaganz. I should have skipped that. But Extravaganz, Gunvolt will gain new weapons every time he completes 2 stages. So we're going to get our first one right now, and it's called the Naga. And in the 3DS version, you had to go into the pause menu to be able to change this out, but other versions gave you buttons that let you change them out on the fly. Otherwise, I can technically go into the pause menu and change it out as well. But the Naga is a special little gun that works where you can actually charge your shot, and the projectile will go through things. So basically, it can go through walls, it can go through enemies. It's a piercing shot when charged up, basically, but otherwise it doesn't do all that much more damage. But now we're moving into Viper's stage, and this is where things get interesting, because if anyone has caught the first time I ran this game for an event, I actually did it where I went into Elise's stage next. I decided to try a little bit of a different routing, though, because that's the thing with Gunvolt 1. Despite you gaining guns every 2 stages, it's not like you're getting a certain power-up that's weak or like more effective against bosses. Coincidentally, though, that sort of thing actually does apply to another protagonist within the franchise, that being Kofen. But we'll talk about him because, funnily enough, that also pertains to the mid-stage. Anyway, here's the spider tank. This is basically a mashing litmus test. As you can see, he can close off his weak point, but what I want to do is mash and damage fast enough before the second attack officially closes that weak point, and just like that, I have saved myself some time, because otherwise he would jump up to the ceiling. That would cause time loss. But it is a pretty simple little trick to do once you know how to effectively mash in this game. Alright, so moving on to the second set of stages. Now, you might have already noticed that there are a lot of boxes. Well, we've got some boxes on conveyors, and this game actually invokes a bit of a global cycle. So it's with that in mind that I'm trying to get to... Oh, that was so close. So I could have cleared that. I was actually really close to clearing that. But this third and final one... Okay, there we go. I got the good cycle there. I was trying to get to that gap before that first box officially closed me off. We should be good, though. We don't have to worry about global cycles from here on out. At least I don't think we do. Oh, that's a bit of an unfortunate thing. Okay, there we go. That did cost me a bit of time, but yeah. Oh well. So, alarm rooms, let's talk about those, because, as you saw in Merrick's level, I destroyed an alarm, and I basically opened up the way. So, mob rooms, actually, I'm actually going to give myself some quick serious time, because I got to do a quick manipulation for this next jewel. It's a bit of a box puzzle. Oh, hang on. Oh, that's the wrong gun. Okay, and then... Ooh! Unfortunate, so I'm gonna have to retry that. The good news is the pause menu does allow me to do that willingly, but yeah. So that right there is a box puzzle. The explosive boxes would cause the whole structure to collapse and then block your way from getting the jewel. I don't want that, obviously, so by doing this a certain way, I can negate that. Oh! Oh, but I got the jewel anyway. I actually admittedly slipped up there, but hey, it looks like I didn't have to do the trick after all. Funny how that works. Thank you, game. Alright, so, as I was saying, mob rooms. Those work where you either have to destroy all the enemies, and there's a little counter in the bottom right to show it, or you can just break the alarm, and then that's that. So, for most parts, I'm going to be breaking the alarm, but there is one room where I have to take care of all the enemies no matter what, because there is no alarm. Other than that, we are getting up to what is probably one of the more casually annoying and frustrating bosses of the game, Viper. And fun fact, apparently the series writer was responsible for his programming, which, that's kind of funny. But here we go. Viper here is obviously Wrath. His firepower kind of plays a little bit to that. But he's also pretty pissed off that Gunvolt, in the first level, our objective was to shut down a virtual idol that can locate these superpowered people just like Gunvolt, which allows Sumeragi to find them and exploit them for their experiments. But it turns out that that Lumen, that very idol, was the septimal projection of a little girl named Jewel. So the person that I basically spoke to in order to get the anthem manip. Yeah, Viper kinda was in love with Jewel, so therefore the whole theming of Wrath also is kind of personal for him. But yeah, this is a super move. Basically puts us into a bullet hell. I hope you guys like Toho, because I actually heard it's Cheerno Day today. So shout out to Cheerno, everyone's favorite ice fairy. Other than that, I also know that today is Splatoon 3 release date, so I hope you all have been enjoying that. But that was a really good fight, so yeah. All things considered, we are looking pretty good so far, but I just need to get through the next results screen, like so. The game does rank you based on a score from C to S+. And so ranking usually gets better depending on your scoring, but also your timing. That's something I don't necessarily have to worry about, though. But it does give you more tries in that little bonus game that I'm just auto-throughing, and those give you materials that you can use to sin. Alright, we're going to Carrera stage. The theme here is magnetism, and one of the nice things about Gunvolt in general is that GV stages are often, if not always, themed around his very flash field, which allows us to do stuff like pulling out these magnetic platforms, which is really cool. So I definitely got to give props to the level designers for thinking about these sort of things to give practical usage to what would otherwise be our main weapon altogether. But yeah, so Carrera's level also has conveyor belts, and then in the second half we'll start to see some laser turrets, but the general gist is pervasion, and that's about that. Now we're going into an alarm room where there's 0 enemies, and I have to bust down the alarm, so I'm just going to try and climb up fast as so. Astrosphere. And I got the thing where I was standing on top of the conveyor belt, so it did move Gunvolt. The first time I recall that happening was my last event run, so I would say that's never happened before, but not at this point. Alright, so second half of the stage, the jewel will be within a section of magnetic platforms that lifts GV up when I utilize his flash field, like right here. There we go. Alright, we got our third jewel. We're looking pretty so far, and quite literally, too. But otherwise, here are those laser turrets. Technically, you can destroy them, but it takes a lot of electricity and potential shooting to do so. But fun fact, in a later game, Gunvolt Chronicles Luminous Avenger X, those laser turrets return, but they are indestructible. So that's a little interesting thing. Other than that, though, we will be coming up to Carrera's boss fight in a bit. For now, I think this would be a fine time to mention any donations or announcements if we have any, Nick.
Fantastic. We've not got any more donations coming just yet, so please, folks, keep those donations coming in. As a reminder, FTLG this time round is supporting the charity To Write Love on Her Arms. They are a non-profit movement dedicated to presenting hope and finding help for people struggling with depression, addiction, self-injury, and suicide. They exist to encourage, inform, inspire, and also to invest directly into treatment and recovery. And as much as we are asking people to donate, if you have people in your lives, or maybe yourself, who's struggling with those things, then please go and have a look at their website. They have information, they have ways to get in contact if you are someone who is struggling, or you know someone who is struggling. So please, don't keep it quiet, speak out, get help. And let's see if we can make a difference with this marathon. Back to you, Tempest.
Sounds good. We are in the midst of fighting Carrera. His sin is greed. He is a bit of a fighter. In the English script, he also has a bit of a Shakespearean dialect as well, which I always found kind of funny and charming. But, well, there we go. So that was his special move, Quasar Collapse. Now, you noticed that as it was in full swing, my flash field was disabled, but utilizing the special skills, that has a different gauge, which you might have noticed on the bottom left. So the nice thing about that is I don't need to worry about my EP in order to do stuff like Astrosphere and other things akin to it. But other than that, we have beaten 3 stages, and now we are moving into a mid-level where our supposed target is another Sumeragi 7 named Zonda. Now, this is going to be interesting, though, because there's also a good reason as to why I selected to do these 3 stages first. The thing about Merrick's stage, though, is that while it is pretty much the most convenient thing to do in order to get Naga, therefore new game runners usually go for him first, the thing is, his little special move that gets contributed to this stage's boss is kind of a time waster, so once we get to said boss, I'm hoping that he won't use it on me. But yeah, no, let's focus on this stage right now. We are in Sinner's Row, and this is definitely a fan favorite to some, especially those who like a challenge. The thing about Gunvolt that I need to be careful of is that bottomless pits will insta-kill me, and even if I had Anthem, unfortunately, you cannot resurrect via Anthem when you die to a pit. So, yeah, those are definitely some of the worst things to deal with in just about any Gunvolt game. Although Gunvolt 3 actually recently nerfed the danger of pits, which Gunvolt 3 actually did come out this year. So, yeah, funny how that works. But, yeah, other than that, let's see if I can bust down this hexapile, and then we're just gonna... I'm feeling a little generous today. Let's give Zonda a bit of screen time. So, we're just gonna say a quick little hello, Zonda, and bye, Zonda. So, yeah. I'm just gonna say it right now, Zonda is lust. I'm sure if you one look at his design, then you can probably see why. But Zonda's power is mirrors, and that gets implemented into the stage design. So whenever I touch those portals, first and foremost, I want to make sure I'm touching the right one, because otherwise it throws me into a mob room, which, that's never fun. And I mean an extra mob room, because this is the right room. This is actually the right room, but yeah. Take my word for it. But now I got to do a little bit of backtracking, because the next jewel is actually located on top of that spire. So I just need to do this. And there we go. Now, in the Striker Pack versions, or the Switch, PS4, and Xbox versions, they did change the location to something a little less backtracky. Right here, technically. But in those versions as well, there's a lot more floor for safety. It would be right up here, though, where I just walked on as I just said that. Oh, gotta be a little careful here. Cool down is not fun under, like, over a bottomless pit. You are seeing the mirror do these reversing tricks, by the way. Whenever the screen is flipped upside down, my down and up functions are reversed, but directional reversing for the side stuff, that's not a thing. So if I need to recharge, though, when I'm upside down, I actually have to double tap up. Recharging otherwise normally happens when you double tap down. Otherwise, oh hey, this isn't Zonda, this is actually Copen. So in this game, he's actually an antagonistic rival, but then from here on out, he became an anti-hero, at least in the next game anyway. So the funny thing about him is he has a system where he has kind of copied the moves of the 3 bosses that we've fought so far. And so right now he hasn't... Oh, okay, there we go. So that's Carrera's move, and that's the one that I want to see the most. Oh wait, he did use Viper's move a little earlier, but yeah. The reason I choose to do Viper... Oh, well, that's the move I didn't want to see. So yeah, he's literally using Merrick's Lazy Laser. But, you know, the thing about him is that when he uses most of his special moves, the front of him is covered, but the piercing bullet of the Naga is able to reach him, technically, so if that does happen, it's not the worst thing. Otherwise... Alright, there we go. Now, the thing about the Greed Snatcher attack is if any of those bullets hit me, my EP is disabled for quite a while, and that effectively makes his move much more dangerous than Carrera's. So, from here on out, I want to, anytime you see those bullets, I do want to avoid them as best as I can, because that can be really annoying. Alright, other than that, let's go ahead into our next stage, Stratos. So, right now you're going to see me do a series of movements. Sometimes movement can be a whole general sort of thing, but other times I am trying to do movement optimally because there's not really a whole lot of special tricks. There's not a whole lot of zips and stuff. Although technically, in Viper stage, when I was collecting the jewel, I was supposed to have a box come falling on me because Gunvolt does not crush. Try it yourself. You can have Gunvolt behind any sort of floor or object, but it will not kill him. It'll just push him to the nearest open space, and then the game just moseys on along. Well, anyway, coming up is next jewel, is this time in the first portion of the stage. So there you go. Other than that, we've got 2 more jewels left. We are coming up to a mini-boss called the Eidolon. And in this case, I got to open up the core by shooting the bud, I guess, enough times. So let's see if I can do that. Okay, so I didn't quite get the pattern I wanted because if I manage to avoid the pollen coming out, then that would technically be a bit faster, but otherwise, a little extra sphere, a little extra flash field damage. Those vine platforms wither away from my flash fields, so by doing that little manipulation, I'm already on the floor, and out of here. Alright. Second half of the stage. Now, this one has it where once I get up to the surface, I will start... There's a chance that a swarm of bugs will try to chase me. But if I manage to avoid that, I will call it bugless, and I personally like to see that it's not like it's a time saver or anything, but the bugs themselves basically try to damage me and stuff, but otherwise they even hurt enemies in the area itself. We'll see though. Otherwise I can zap those bugs using my flash field. Okay, it wasn't quite bugless, but that's fine. At least they weren't all that pesky, really. But yeah, other than that, we are coming up to the next boss, Stratos, and his little sin is gluttony, because Stratos is an adept that was experimented upon using this synthetic drug that Eidolon was producing. So because we just destroyed the source, now he's basically unhinged and very hungry. And his Septima powers are the bugs that we did see earlier. They are basically carnivorous flies that don't discern friend or foe, they just eat up whatever. It is a pretty freaky power. But definitely akin to a certain other Metal Gear face that you all might have seen in the last run. I'm sure Nick knows exactly what I mean. That, of course, being our friend the Fury. Or was it? No, actually, no. Was it the Pain? I think it was the Pain. Yeah, I think it was the Pain. Nick, was the guy with the bugs...
I am seeing a lot of... I was going to say, I'm seeing a lot of bugs on screen right now. Yes, it would be the Pain.
There we go. Okay, hang on. Alright, that was probably good. I'm trying to do a little super move skip. Ooh, this could be effective. Not quite. So what I was trying to do there was a setup where if I did enough damage, then I could have avoided the super move cutscene skip. You're mostly going to see that, but in the case of Stratos, it is one of the avoidable ones. Alright, so moving on, we now proceed to Jota, which is a really fun stage, and one that some of you might recall if you've played the Gunvolt 3DS demo. The other stage present, other stages present there were the intro stage and Viper stage, so funny how that works. Now, Technos, that's a funny gun a little there. It shoots in 2 diagonal directions, and you can only tag enemies twice with it. But in Gunvolt 2, it is very effective because changing guns does not change the amount of times you can tag, and instead just changes just the shot properties, so it effectively becomes a shotgun in Gunvolt 2. Funny how that works. But yeah, as I get different guns, each of them not only have different firing properties, but also different clip amounts. So yeah, nice little quality of life change between this and the sequel. Other than that, though, we are climbing up the Utsu Media Tower, and this is a locale that actually gets mentioned or nodded to quite a bit, because in Gunvolt 3, the enemy's fortress stage is this entire area, except transformed by one of the members' powers. I know that might sound like a bit of a spoiler alert, but I assure you, it's one of those references that, unless you played the original game, you probably wouldn't know. So it's a really nice detail in my book. Other than that, though, we are moving on to the second section. Now, you already noticed there are these little light launchers right there. The nice thing about it is I can extend my launch trajectory if I am using the flash field, which I will in just a bit for a couple of particular launchers. But as we are climbing up the rest of the tower, I'm going to toss it back to Nick, so anything you got to say, go ahead, do so right now.
Absolutely. We want to thank all of the staff behind the scenes at FTLG Marathon for making this whole thing possible. There's a load of work, both in the planning and, of course, in the actual execution of these events. So, you know, please give it up for those big thanks. And of course, the best way that you can thank everyone for all their hard work in putting these marathons together is to give generously when you can, show your support, and even just a retweet on Twitter, or sharing it on your local Discord server. Anything you can do to help the marathon is a great way of giving back. So thank you.
Absolutely, thank you very much. All right, here we go. Jota, this guy has a lot of RNG. Particularly speaking, he is a boss that likes to disperse these little light arrays. And so the idea is, in the second portion of the boss fight, because I'm sure you all can see that bosses have 3 portions of health in their bars, and they go into little invincibility frame periods when you break one. And during the second phase, the lasers can sometimes come out individually, and that is the biggest time waster. I do not want that. Let's see what he does. Alright, so far still looking like a basic move. As you can see, my flash field is pushing away those little drills whenever he does those. Alright, good. Good RNG so far. Alright, coming up will be his special move. Oh, dang, that's a bit of a time waster at this point. If he did that earlier, that would have been quite alright, but not at this rate. Okay. Zero Blade or Phosphoratorium. Actually, I'll get into the localization in a bit, but watch this. There you go. So the way to dodge that move is you keep mashing darts into him, and it keeps him pushed back until the little damage zone up in the top eventually goes away. So, yeah, I gotta thank some of the speedruns I've watched for teaching me that, because I wouldn't have known that casually. But yeah, generally speaking, when it comes to Gunvolt games, when it looks like there's an impossible attack to dodge, just rest assured, there is a will and there is a way. Alright, one final stage. Now this one I normally go for this one second, but with this set of splits, I actually decided to try, or this particular order, I actually decided to try going last, because Elise's stage here. By the way, I forgot to mention that Jota is the Sin of Pride. Elise is a little something interesting. The boss fight in particular, the stage isn't all that bad, but let's just say that for speedruns, Elise's stage can be a bit of a potential run killer. So here's the gimmick of this level. You have these colored panels that can invoke colored lights, and there are also these beams. As long as I turn on the right colored light, that beam color will go away. It starts with singular colors at first, but then I'll start mixing colors to produce extra results. We also got a bit of necromancy going on here, though, because once we turn on the lights here, you'll start to notice some zombies. And it looks like we've entered the Resident Evil games universe a little bit early, huh? But yeah, other than that, I'm going to a mob room. I'm going to break the alarm as per usual with Astrosphere. And then we are going to break the hexapile to move on to the second section. And it's at that point that the colored panels will start to have multiple ones and then multiple beams. Let me see if I can do this little trick, though. Alright, cool. So, I'll explain that in a bit, but I gotta start mixing colors from here on out once we see more than one panel. Now, the nice thing about that trick I just did there was I hit the hexapile before I entered the room, because technically projectiles can still be active even when they pass a room's supposed boundaries. And as far as I can tell, that still seems to be a thing in Gunvolt games in general. That's a little unfortunate. I forgot to start charging the Naga before I got to that panel, because then I could shoot through the wall, and that would have made that section a little bit faster, but it's not that big a deal. Alright. Got another alarm room coming up. Now, you might be wondering, what the heck is with the little number counter below my health? That's the kudos meter, and it's more for scoring purposes. You get points as you deal damage to enemies. You get little bonus points for doing cool kills, and whenever you enter 1,000 kudos or more, J-Pop starts blasting from Lumen, who is showing her support, saying, hey, good job, keep it up. Kind of like how it was in the Anthem, except the thing about the kudos meter is that if you notice that little fearless icon, that's the default of the PC and 3DS version, where if I take a single hit, I lose all my kudos. But then we also have options like, let me think about that one. Cautious? Right, it was cautious. Ah, dang it. Give me a moment here. Cautious, where you lose your kudos in 3 hits, and then Gutless, where you keep your kudos no matter what. Now, those zombies, unfortunately, I got grabbed by them twice, and they completely drained me entirely. But yeah. Other than that, hi, Elise. What a nice-looking girl, right? Well, unfortunately, the joke's on us. She's actually the boss, and has a split personality. So this is an homage to one of my favorite bosses from Mega Man ZX Advent, Argoyle and Ugoyle, where the idea is you're fighting 2 of these 2 adepts here, but the split personality also has a bit of a resurrection gimmick, where if I fail to kill one before the other in a short enough amount of time, then the remaining one will resurrect the other as their special move. So that's an extra cut-in. Ooh, that's a move that I don't like seeing. That's a sort of Gorgon's Gaze attack. If I look in the direction of the beams, then, yeah, I get petrified. That's a bit of cooldown. Okay, there we go. That's a pretty good boss fight. And just like that, we have entered the fortress stages. And, Elise's Envy. Process of elimination right there, but yeah, Elise's Envy. Not sure what caused the split personality thing, though. Alright, so now we're moving into what is probably the shortest Gunvolt level in a game. We're actually going to fight an upgraded version of the Mantis boss, and so it's going to have some slightly different attacks, particularly some annoying missiles, per se, and if I destroy those missiles, those shoot out energy balls that try to go after me, so let's see what goes on. Just gotta go up to the thing. And the story context right now is that Jewel just got kidnapped, so unfortunately we have to go rescue her. Which is a shame, because those jewels that I collected throughout those stages, I have to give them to her in order to get the good ending. But because I can't, that means we're actually going to have to see the bad ending first. And you might be thinking, well, did I do something wrong? No. The game always has you encounter a bad ending every time you start a new file. That's just how Gunvolt 1 was programmed, how it was designed, you know, it can't really question it all that much, but it is what it is. So, yeah, I can assure you that the canonical ending in the main games, though, is indeed the good ending, which we'll technically be seeing in just a bit, but yeah. Now we're moving on to Erdu. This is a fun little level because we have some weather gimmicks. And how that's going to play out is, for the first section, the rain is going, or the wind is going against me, so I want to stay on the ground for as much as I can because jumping in the mid-air is a bit slower. But once we break the hexapile and move on to section 2, where things get a little interesting. Other than that, though, not really much happening. So, how about this? Nick, let's talk about some incentives. What do we got on the docket?
That is a very good question.
Fair enough.
Actually don't know the answer because I'm not sure. I think the incentives have been done through Oengus, and Oengus has been having all sorts of problems today. But instead, I could instead talk about some of the runs that we've still got after this one. We've got Hammerhead Labs running Crash Team Racing, any percent. Then we've got Razor Dak with Resident Evil Survivor. And if that's not enough Resident Evil for you, following him we have Moon Runes V2 with Resident Evil 7. And that is New Game Plus Steering Wheel percent. That is not a run you are going to want to miss. It's also got Katie O'Hagan, voice actor, on comms with Moons, so please stick around, keep watching, because we've got some really, really awesome runs coming up.
Oh yeah, that's super cool. If I'm not mistaken, she's the voice of Mia. Which is really nice. I love the fact that For the Love of Gaming has had quite a few runs with voice actors for special guests. It's always really nice to see speedrunners having the opportunity to interact with developers and other people that have worked on certain games and all that stuff. It's just really, really cool. And it's with that in mind that I would actually like to give a major shout out to the voice actors of Gunvolt, because this game series mostly had it dubbed in Japanese, but English dubbing is something that the localization team has always wanted to do, and the players have always wanted, period. And, well, as of Gunvolt Chronicles Luminous Avenger X2 this year, we finally had it, and it carried over to Gunvolt 3 as well. So, a major shout out to plenty of the voice actors that got the opportunity to bring new life to all sorts of faces, both old and new, very, very recently. One such name in particular I'd like to give a shout out to is Sean Chiplock, who is the voice of Gunvolt, and I just love his work. You might recognize him for characters like Rivali from Breath of the Wild, or Kai if you played Guilty Gear Strive. But then there's also Diana Garnett, who voiced Lumen. Actually, the funny thing is, I saw the little promotional tweet for my run, and the little image that the guys used, that the folks used, is from the Gunvolt OVA, which was the very first time anything Gunvolt got a dub, but not the games. Not for a long while. But Diana actually played Jewel and Lumen in that OVA, so knowing that she got to reprise that role in Gunvolt 3, I couldn't be any happier for her. Congrats, Diana. Alright, so now we've entered the official boss refight portion of the run, and we start off with Merit, particularly with this stage. You'll also notice that there's a couple of bottomless pits right over here in this battle arena. Ooh, a little unfortunate. Alright, we're gonna try that again, though. But yeah, this fight is a little bit harder in this portion. Otherwise, you might have noticed that in the second section of this level, I had the wind against my back, and that made my jumping the go-to mobility here. So, yeah, it's a really nice little detail for sure. Alright, we're gonna try that again, though. And honestly, it's kind of surprising how well I've done up to now. Like, that was my first death of the run. So I've been doing really, really exceptional for my own standard. Because normally that tends to happen a little earlier than you might expect. Well, okay, aside from the Anthem manipulation, I haven't quite forgotten about that, and I think that might as well count, but that was intentional. Alright, here we go again with Lazy Laser. And the reason I moved to the side is to manipulate the spawn locations of the lasers, if that wasn't initially clear. Alright. Alright, just a little bit more. Maybe one Astro Sphere should do it. There we go. Now, whenever a boss arena has some bottomless pits, normally one thing that the game likes to do is wait for your player character to touch the ground. If I finished him on the ground, then that would have just immediately brought us to his defeat animation, but you know what? No big deal, really. Alright. So, we only have technically a couple more stages within the main lineup, but we are not quite done yet. But this next stage will start us off with a bit of a boss rush. And so, as I'm going up this orbital elevator, I'm actually going to fight in this particular order: Stratos, Jota, and then Viper. I need to make sure I defeat all of them because there's no checkpoint until after I've defeated Viper. This can be a very punishing level if you do not know how to effectively deal with the bosses, admittedly. Alright. So, let's have some more announcements going, if you could please, Nick.
I certainly can. I have been able to find the incentives, though we haven't actually got anything live at the moment. The only incentives that we've had so far have already been met. So well done, folks, but keep an eye out because there will be more incentives coming, I am sure. However, something that is special for this marathon in particular is, depending on how much you do donate, there are some gifts available for you. We've been able to work with the charity to write love on her arms to be able to give away some stuff. So if you donate $50, $100, $250, or even $500, there is a gift that we can send you to say thank you and to remind you about the charity and to remind you about your experience with us this weekend. So if you'd like to see more information about those, then head on over to the donation page. There is a rewards tab that will give you the breakdown, tell you exactly what you can take away. And like I said, there is also a targets page there, which may be updated with some stuff at some point. So keep an eye out.
Awesome. Thank you very much. So, I managed to get the DM skip there with Stratos there. One particular gun that made it all the easier was the Orochi gun, which I get for defeating all of the Sumeragi 7 members. And it has up to 8 tags, but it also has a little drone that will fire that little dart spread, so that definitely makes this trick a little bit easier. But I have missed it in the past as well, ironically, while in the previous event run I did of this game, I actually did manage to get the DM skip, the cutscene skip, in his actual stage, so it's kind of funny how that sort of thing can work. I guess you could say that my luck just likes to punish me in mysterious ways. But that's Jota, and whenever he does that flash stinger attack, I can also push him back with the darts, just like I did with Phosphoratorium. So, the localization of this game is a bit interesting, because Director Suda always seemingly mandates some sort of a name change, mostly between super attack names. Sometimes super attack names might be the same as what they are in the Japanese script, but stuff like, well, in this game particularly, you can especially hear that stuff like Refulgence is actually supposed to be Sunshine Nova. Well, the thing is that originally, former localization director Matt Papa stated that the intent was to have it where Japanese voice actors could say both attack names, but by the time they thought it out, they already kind of ran out of time, everything was recorded and stuff, but later Gunvolt games did account for that. So, there's that. But also, Viper's name here is actually Daytona in the Japanese script, so sometimes character names are a bit different because I guess they don't want to, I guess Suda doesn't want to worry about copyright issues or whatnot, which actually brings me up to the second theming that you can notice within the Gunvolt 1 bosses. All the characters are named after cars. You got Viper, I'm sure that, like Dodge Viper, for instance, but then there's also Daytona as well. That should be a little obvious. So yeah. And even Copen himself has a very on-the-nose car name in the Japanese script, which is Acura. So, alright, we got the checkpoint. We're fighting Elise, and you'll notice that there's a third personality this time. I can't damage her. That said, I have to win this fight by causing one mandatory resurrection, so contrary to avoiding them in the first place. But then, after I beat the two of them the second time, well, we should be good. Oh god! That's not good, though. And that right there is a first-hand demonstration of why the Medusa attack is bad. It's pretty common for me to get that in my runs, unfortunate, but Tempest luck. Oh well. Alright, let's try that again. Alright, here we go. Orochi is fairly effective because the fact that I can get at least 3 targets on both versions of Elise is pretty helpful. Technically, the Shy personality is a bit tankier, though, than the sadistic one. And then, as I just mentioned, the crazy one is something that you just cannot hit, period. Alright. Hopefully. Thank you. Okay, so now I gotta do that one more time. Yeah, that's the one time you're gonna see a resurrection if I do it right. Otherwise, the text does not look that crazy, nor is it on the top of the screen. Yeah, stuff like that. Come on. Yeah, that's more like it. So, Copen is back. He finished off the third personality, but now we gotta fight him again. Because Copen's big beef is that he hates adepts, or the supernatural people like Gunvolt, because, unfortunately, his father was a Sumeragi researcher that was responsible for just about every major bit of adept technology that Sumeragi has. But then he realized adepts are kind of dangerous. Sumeragi kind of wanted to shut him up about it. Turns out, though, that it was actually an adept that killed him that escaped and went rogue. Who that fella is? Well, we'll get into that soon enough. Copen has all moves from all the bosses, though, at this point. Except for Zonda. He never technically gets a move from Zonda. But, oh wait, actually no, maybe this one. Yeah, maybe technically this one. Because now he's a super move. So I'm just going to do this. Those are clones that you can target and then sort of eliminate, but the Astra Sphere will do just fine. And that's the level. We are now moving on to the final Nova stage, which will be Nova, or featuring Nova himself. But then things will get a bit interesting. Alright. Not gonna lie, I'm feeling like I could definitely use some soda for this, from this point on, for hydration. So, soda up! That's hit the spot. Alright, so now we're going to enter that aforementioned enemy room where there's no alarm and I have to bust them down myself. And this will be interesting, because if you look at that, I am absolutely decimating these folks like it's nobody's business. Now, I should mention that every time I level up, a nice little reward, aside from getting the occasional extra skill move for Gunvolt, is that, believe it or not, you get full HP recoveries. So, in speedrun mode, this is actually used quite a bit, considering that with the lack of pervasion, damage boosting is a lot more prevalent. Alright, now we're coming up to Nova's fight. And Nova Phase 1, there are two phases of Nova. Phase 1 is interesting because it's the one time in this game where a boss does not have iframes after I bust down a section of health. But here's the gimmick. I have to use my flash field because there's Lumen right there. He is basically manipulating Jewel and Lumen and having the Muse power to do his bidding. So it's creating this force field that if I try to shoot at it, this little, yeah, that right there, this little spike projectile like that will come at me, and, you know, that's no fun. Other than that, he will have his own move, Mind Melder, or Psycho Fusion. And it works a little bit like that. It's a very simple one, but I can also just Astrosphere him, and it should be enough to kill. Let's go. Alright, but now he's got a Phase 2, and he's a lot bigger this time. The gimmick here is that you have to hit these drones in order to then expose the core in the center. So it's a bit of a yin-yang theme going on here, which is pretty neat. Now, to my knowledge, Nova does not have a Sin theme going for him, but each of the Sumeragi bosses in this game also have a bit of a little code name, like how Elise is the Eternal Envy. Nova's is the Mighty, and he's actually the president of Sumeragi here, so yeah. That aside, though, the thing about the characters is that, what if I told you Gunvolt is actually 14 years old in this game, and yet he certainly looks nothing like it? But then, Nova himself is also 14 years old, which is kind of funny. I don't know why. It's just... Okay, I guess I guess our heroes need to be young prodigies, prodigies or something like that. I don't know. All right, let's see if I can avoid this embarrassing death. There we go. All right, so normally that would be time in the any percent category, but we have a good ending to achieve, and we have not quite achieved that just yet. So, unfortunately, I can't skip through the bad ending credits. I have to hold L and R in order to instead sort of just fast forward through them. So I'm actually going to take another little hydration, but I also need to save after the credits because otherwise that'll ruin the run. Whew. Alright, so. Alright, let's make sure I save up. Just gotta see it pop up. Okay, cool. The run is still on. So now I gotta load that data. I'm going to give all 7 of those jewels I collected to Jewel. And then that little dialogue right there acknowledged that Gunvolt technically saw the 2 of them die. The bad ending is still going to happen. It's just that the game sort of cuts off after the bad ending, if you will. But whatever the case, Jewel just gave us a pendant, a handmade, or rather a handmade necklace. This is the major thing that we need to have equipped to us in order to activate the good ending in the story mode. Why is that? Well, story purposes, basically. But I will say this. Having it equipped does not give me any buff, and it takes away my prevasion. So this time I need to be a little more careful about the damage I take. Also, I'm going to show off the Vasuki gun, which is something that I got after getting the bad ending for the first time. It's really cool because while you tag up to 4 enemies, you do manage to... Hey, we got some J-pop! Let's go! It does function where the pins home off of one target it hits and then goes on to another. But yeah, that right there is a little live and rare example of me getting the J-pop threshold for the kudos meter, which is pretty rad. Unfortunately, we're going to see Beyond the Blue go away in just a second, because if it wasn't obvious by now, whenever I hit a checkpoint or use a special move like Astrosphere, your kudos gets clocked into score. Alright, let's try it. So Nova round 2. Now, I was considering equipping the Galvanic Patch skill, which would have been able to, again, recover a little bit of my HP, but I ended up not doing so. I kind of just aired out a little, admittedly, but that's okay. Theoretically, I should have enough EXP or XP to get a level up, although I kind of already did after Phase 2 the first time, so this could be interesting. Alright, let's hope, though, because that would be pretty nice. Okay, not quite, but that's fine. I just gotta survive. Of course, the fact that there's a bottomless pit in this battlefield is also pretty harrowing. So, gotta be mindful of that, too. Yeah, that laser attack is hard to damage without the flash field, because one of the nice secondary effects of having the flash field active is it acts as something of a hover for Gunvolt. So yeah, very convenient. Ooh, that was close. Ah! But then I touched the hand. Oh, that's unfortunate. Okay, well... in that case, we're going to try again. Unfortunately, though, this could very well put me just a little bit overestimate, because it seems that we are nearing the hour mark. But this shouldn't take too long now that I've got a clean slate of health. So I'm actually going to pass it on over to Nick for any announcements if we got any.
Thank you very much. I'd just like to remind everyone the reason that we are all here watching the marathon, running in the marathon, talking about the marathon. It is because we are supporting the charity To Write Love on Her Arms. They are a non-profit movement dedicated to presenting hope and finding help for people struggling with depression, addiction, self-injury and suicide. The charity exists to encourage, inform, inspire and also to invest directly into treatment and recovery. Please check out that website and of course, as we will keep repeating throughout the stream, please head over to the donation page and give what you can, because it is a fantastic charity and we really want to help them out as much as we can. Thank you.
Absolutely. I just want to say, someone who has friends that have dealt with mental health issues in the past, I always appreciate being able to help out charities like this one. To Write Love on Her Arms is a really nice choice. I'm glad that you guys picked this one. And yeah, just know that I am very grateful for any donations that anyone can offer, truly. But yeah, with that said, we have defeated Nova. And if all goes well, we are going to enter the true final stage. Now, that bad ending, you're probably wondering, what was it? Well, our mentor slash father figure, Azimov, who is also the leader of Quill. We actually kind of defected. Technically, we defected from Quill to do freelance work to take care of Jewel after the intro level. But yeah, we've also still been doing work for Quill all this time. It's complicated. Azimov, he cares about the adept population, but he has a major vengeance against the human population, and he wanted Gunvolt to be the king of his little utopia plan where he was going to eliminate all non-adept humans like Copen and stuff. So Gunvolt's not all for that, but Azimov also kind of ran into Copen off screen. The two had a bit of a scuffle. Azimov put Copen on the ropes and stole his gun and basically killed us. But the little necklace that Jewel crafted for us did save our lives. So now, unfortunately, Jewel does die, but her conscience is now transferred into Lumen, so she essentially lives on in our conscience as well. So basically, the two of us are now kind of one. It's weird anime stuff, but this game is very anime, if it wasn't obvious by now. But now we, of course, you might have been wondering where Carrera was this whole time, and he was here, apparently, lying in wait. I guess he might have been, like, teaming up with Azimov or something like that. I don't know. That's what I hear. But he just really loves fighting Gunvolt, and he doesn't care what happens for his mission objective. He just wants to fight a strong foe. So we took care of him, no problem. And a little quick reminder that Gunvolt in this Anthem state has infinite air hops and air dashes. But still, we have a bit of a challenge ahead of us. This is the true final boss fight against Azimov, and time will be when his HP reaches 0. He's going to try and use Copen's gun, which is now fully on Greed's Snatcher setting, and if that hits us, we still lose the EP gauge, despite it being technically infinite in this state. So I want to avoid that at all costs. Otherwise, surprise, surprise, Azimov himself is an Azure Striker too. So Prevasion does not... One theme that's been going on in Gunvolt games is that Prevasion does not activate if you get hit by an Azure Striker attack. So, because that is the basic majority of Asimov's moveset, the only time I can really use Prevasion is by making physical contact with him. But yeah. Other than that, the gist of the fight is I have to counter his flash field with mine in order to, therefore, put him in cooldown, and otherwise, when I try to hit him, he himself uses Prevasion, so yeah. Otherwise, this is a really rad boss fight, but now comes his desperation move, Volcanic Chains, which is something Gunvolt can also use. It's the last offensive skill he gets, too. But I gotta be careful, because I gotta use the flash field or, oh dang it, mash the infinite jump, because otherwise, that'll do enough damage to instantly kill me. Stratos' DM is also instant kill if it manages to fully activate, but it has a bit of a setup. And then Carrera's explosion from his move kind of does the same thing as well. Sort of, anyway. Alright, so that wasn't bad getting hit once, but we are almost done, though. Time! And that was Azure Striker Gunvolt, y'all. We have gotten the true ending, and I actually got to try to fast forward through these credits too, because I almost forgot that in the PC 3DS version, you are timed via IGT, which is determined from the save file time. So if I don't skip through the credits now, then I'm just going to waste more time. But yeah, I'm pretty positive that this is going to be a PB. So that is because we do separate the Gunvolt games usually by platform, and this is especially the case. It's a bit interesting though, because the 3DS PC version we do IGT timing, everything else is RTA. But yeah, let's see what I got. Oh, that was pretty good though, all things considered. Alright, 1 hour, 4 minutes, 40 seconds. I'm not sure what it is about the Gunvolt game that has its IGT going much, much, much higher than the RTA timer, but you know what? A PB is still a PB, because quite frankly, the first time I ran this category on the PC, it was very sloppy, so needless to say, a major improvement, and we did go a little bit over estimate, but still, that was definitely a fun time. Thank you all for allowing me to show off this game. If you would like to join the Gunvolt speedrunning community, we do have a Discord, and we are very much welcome to any new runners of any kind. There are quite a few games, and they're pretty accessible on all the main platforms: Steam, Xbox, PlayStation, and Switch. I really enjoy these games, so I would highly recommend. That in mind, though, I would like to give a quick shout out to runners like Benha, let's see here, Ajarmar, Greenalink, and just about everyone that has set the stage for Gunvolt 1 speedrunning before me, because if it wasn't for you guys, I wouldn't be able to catch on to the super fast stuff, and, well, respect your elders, as they say. Other than that, if you guys would like to follow me and check out what I might be up to, my Twitch is TempestMask1000. I also have a YouTube channel of the same name. I do not have a static streaming schedule, but I do try to post on my Twitter if I do have plans to stream, and you can follow me there at @It'sTempestSteve. Other than that, though, yeah, special shout out to the FTLG marathon crew for having me once again. Hopefully this won't be the last time for a while, and I mean, hey, not much else to be said except keep on watching and keep on donating, you all. I'm counting on you to help make a lot of lives all the better, and I know Gunvolt would want the same thing. So, with that said, until we meet again, you all, this is Tempest signing out. Ciao, amici.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Tempest. Fantastic run, and congratulations on the PB. Well, folks, we are, of course, going to keep this rolling. We are going to go to a quick break whilst we get the next run ready, which is Hammerhead Labs running Crash Team Racing. That is, sadly, the end of my hosting block. I'm going to be passing you over to the very capable hands of a T-Tree. But if you haven't quite had enough of me, don't worry. I'm going to be back in about 10 hours running Metal Gear Solid 5 Ground Zeroes. I will see you then. I'll leave you in the capable hands of a T-Tree. Don't go anywhere. And of course, keep those donations coming in. See you soon.